Hey guys, welcome back to our second part of the legacy questions. After our legacy series on parenting, we've got a number of questions from you guys. We're going to follow up with some more of them today. We've got Greg McGinney with us today, one of our elders, 8 children, so he has a lot of expertise in this area, and then our very own Bill Fowler. So guys, I'm going to start by asking the questions since I am the least qualified one to answer them. The first question that we got today is from a couple whose parents are about 60 years old, in their mid-60s. They live out of town, but they're getting to the point where they need some help. How would you advise folks who are trying to care for their parents as parents get older?
And I've read this question, so and there's some challenges there because there's been some addiction and some other issues involved, and the question is, do we move there and care for them? Do we move them here? Either way is hard and difficult. And I would say there's no verse that says, oh, you have to move there or move here. But and I'm not there yet, so I'm speaking clearly just from my thoughts. But if they are seeking to be the providers for their family, they have to care financially, physically. Even though it would be a difficult situation, I would say it's probably best to move the parents close. Just because if you're leaving a job, how are you going to financially provide? You don't know if you're going to find a job. And that's not easy for the parents, I know, but none of this is an easy situation or a perfect situation. But also I know that there's been challenges because the way these children were raised, and there's some background issue there, and whether or not they should care for them even because they were not great as parents to them. And what we've talked about, obviously, before is this is a great opportunity for them, maybe the last opportunity for them to influence and show the love of Christ to their parents. And so despite how good or bad a parent has been in raising you, your call scripturally as a Christian is to care for your family. And just like your mom cared for you when you were helpless and couldn't do anything for yourself, and if it comes to that, that's what we're called to do, just regardless of how response or any of those things. And so it's not easy, and I'm not in that, so it's easy for me to say and not easy for me to, obviously it's harder to do, but I think that's the call for the person who's following Christ as they seek to care for their parents. But do you have something?
Would you add anything, Greg?
Well, I think Bill, I think he nailed it. What we tend to do is we kind of think, oh, well, they're on their own, let them deal with it. They should have planned this. And biblically speaking, it says that we're to care for our parents as they get older, and treat them kind of how they treated us as when we were babies. And so that is going to be very difficult. I'm seeing more and more of that with my parents who are in their mid-80s. But wow, what a great opportunity, especially in this circumstance and in this question, what a great opportunity to show the love of Christ, even though they were negligent, or even still now, they're negligent in what they're doing with their addictions. What a great opportunity for this family to show love to the parents, in this case, maybe the grandparents. So,
and you guys have kind of already answered my follow-up question. And my follow-up question was going to be, if those parents didn't know Christ, or if they didn't parent well growing up, and they have lifestyle choices that you disagree with, would the way that you care for them change, or would you still take the same mode of caring for them?
I don't think it can. I mean, I don't think there's a disclaimer, care for your family if they're following Jesus, if they've been good parents, if they fill in the blank. I don't think the apostle in 1 Timothy 5 gives us that option. He says those who don't care for their family are worse than an unbeliever. And so that's the idea. So
that's good.
Our second question today, guys, is on the exact opposite end of the spectrum. So we're talking about parents, now we're talking about young kids and baptism. And so help us think through baptism for children. How old ought they to be? When did your kids get baptized? How would you kind of coach the congregation through that? And are there any resources that you would point them to?
As far as resources, I'm sure there's some deep theological book, but I mean, we're talking kids. There's not a lot. I don't think that we've found any kids baptism books. And understand that in people who have the same views of baptism as us, we would say we're a believer's baptism. there's differing opinions all over. And so this guy over here who we really trust and really like, he's going to say this, and we're going to say this. My personal opinion, and it's an opinion, is that when a child is showing interest, and for each one of ours that have been baptized, they've come to us. We haven't been like, hey, you want to get baptized? Hey, they've come to us, and then we've kind of had a period of time where they asked more than once, and they talked about it more than once, and then we had discussions on what baptism means, and ultimately what the gospel is, and do they believe this. Then we have felt free at a certain point when they've been able to understand why we baptize, and we feel like they have even just a simple faith in the gospel. We have felt free to baptize. So we've baptized 3 out of our 4. Our youngest is starting to ask now, and so we're having those discussions. But I know there's others that would say, we want to see some fruit. We want to see 16, 17 years old, and
Which is kind of where, not so much the 16 and 17-year-old, but that's kind of where I land with that, only because I think about the accountability is, what is that age of accountability? And it will certainly vary from family to family. With my 8 children, 4 of them have been baptized, and at all various ages. Now, I've got still some younger ones who talk about it like yours do, Bill, but I don't think they understand it so much that I'm wanting to baptize them and me think that's it, and here I am thinking at 13 years old, when I got baptized, I'm thinking I know it all because that's what the youth did. And then it's 15 years later is when I really understood it, when I'm about 28 years old.
Right.
And that's a hard one. I know that some people really want to be able to put an age on it, kind of like the Jewish people. They say, hey, this is bar mitzvah, we're doing it at 13, as if that's the age. It's just going to vary. It's going to change. It's going to be different in where your children are spiritually in their, maturation.
Yeah. And for the worst, if it's the worst thing in the world, like for maybe your case, that someone gets baptized at 10 and then they realize at 21, I don't think I was a believer. Well, we see that in the Scripture. We see that in Ephesian church, where these people were baptized under John the Baptist, and then Paul shows up and they are rebaptized. It's not a horrible thing. So for those who were like, we baptized our kid at 4, and I don't think he gets it, and what do we do? It's not the end of the world, so to speak. In fact, I think it's a sign of great fruit.
That's encouraging.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
what were you going to say?
Well, the categories that I see a lot of guys using are a credible profession of faith and then a mature profession of faith. Mm-hmm. And some people would say as soon as there's a credible profession of faith, as soon as it seems like kids understand the gospel, go ahead and baptize them. What maybe it sounds like what you're saying a little bit more is you want to see a little bit of maturing in the Christian life to identify some fruit.
Absolutely.
But biblically, we don't have really a right or a wrong answer.
No.
It's probably freedom of conscience, I would say.
Yeah, because when you see Acts, first of all, you never see a kid that is explicitly spoken of, a child being baptized. But what you see is Paul shows up, people believe, and they are baptized like immediately. Yeah. And I realize the culture of breaking with Judaism or wherever, the culture is significantly different than ours. But that's what you see. But then again, there was a clear understanding of the gospel. Sometimes you see the Holy Spirit coming on these individuals to verify that he is that this conversion is real, and then they're baptized. So it's a little bit different, but there is some room for disagreement. But the fact that you're discussing this with a 7-year-old is, I think, part of good parenting, and that's what we want. We want our children to understand who Jesus is, what he's done for us, and to see them come to faith.
One more thing I think is worth highlighting, something both of y'all said, is that you waited for your children to start the discussion with you. I think what we definitely have to be careful of, whether you say baptize them immediately upon conversion or wait, what we don't want to do is pressure them into it.
No.
And so I think every parent needs to be careful about moving their kid too quickly toward baptism.
Yeah.
All right, guys, last question for the day. What would you say about spiritually leading your family? In the church we hear a lot about the dad being the spiritual leader in the home. What does that mean for you guys, and what are some practical tips that you would give dads to lead their family spiritually?
There's a lot there. And I think it's gonna look different in a lot of ways. And I'm not saying that I'm the giant here, and so I'm not gonna follow me, I'll lead. But I will say this: I think that there's several elements. One, I think there needs to be time where you're talking about spiritual things with your kids regularly, and it doesn't, I don't think, for us, it doesn't work for these, from 7 to 8 every night we're doing X, because my kids are getting older, and they're doing activities, and they're in school, and they all sorts of stuff, and I know you've been there. So if you try to do family devotions, but we got 3 kids missing, it doesn't go well. But what I try to do is utilize the car. A couple mornings a week, I'm with the older ones. We read scripture together. I'll pray for them. I'll pray with them. I think those are things that, and it needs to be a regular part of life, not necessarily distinct. Obviously, going to church together is a priority. I mean, not if people are sick or out of town, but I mean, if you're once a month, you're showing your children what the priority of corporate worship is, and so that's that's an issue. But just making it part of your life, regular life, not some distinct thing. Which this is church and this is work, and this is church and this is sports, and this is. It's one, and so I think the more conversations you can have and talking about those things, whether it's lying in bed with the little ones at night, praying together, whatever it looks like. For I think it's keeping it at the forefront of what you're doing.
Well, and I'll take the opposite of this. Is Bill is saying what he thinks needs to be done. I'll tell you where men are so afraid of getting out there and leading like they should. One is, and to Bill's point, they don't really know how to do it. Bill is suggesting, well, let's do it in different venues. It doesn't have to be, okay, now I've got Luke open, let's study that. Men are so afraid sometimes to lead spiritually because they're going to be embarrassed of what their wives are going to say about them, or their wives are going to say, well, you started and you didn't finish. So this is something that I think both the sin nature of man, woman, the woman can back down. I would encourage the women to let the man fall on his face. Let him lead the best he can without you up in his ear going, well, you didn't do it right and you should have used a better commentary. There's that sin of woman.
If you're using commentaries with kid, you've probably already made an error.
Amen.
There you go. And so, but us men, we take that passive side, where we go, well, I'm not even going to try because I'm going to be embarrassed. I'm going to be laughed at by my wife. So that's where men have to lose that, and they need to go ahead and get up in it, in spite of. And again, let me encourage the wives. Let them do it. Women, let your husbands try to lead without you being in their ear.
Right.
Giving them suggestions how to do it.
Right.
So,
And even then support their leadership.
Yeah.
That goes a long way for me when Victoria, even if I botch a family devotion,
That's right.
Victoria says, thanks for leading our family.
That's right.
That goes a long way for me.
Yeah.
We try to do Bible time with Dad in the mornings, we call it. And guys, about every other morning at least, it fails miserably. And everybody is yelling, and people are crying, and they're getting up to go to the bathroom.
It's like
And
church.
my wife just has to remind Mommy, honey, you're just trying to hit base hits. I mean, day after day, you're trying to hit a base hit, and sometimes it's going to take, and sometimes it's not. And so we'll see if there's fruit down the road.
Well, sometimes you strike out.
Yeah, sometimes you strike out altogether.
And to your point about the positive, what we can do, and I know this is said over and over and over, there are sometimes we eat our family meals at 8 o'clock at night because we're waiting for everyone to land in the home. Now, with your schedule, it's crazy at times, and your younger girls, it's not too much of an issue. But in my family, by the time this is done or this is completed, it's late. But we eat dinner together almost every night. It is huge, and I know people kind of make fun of that, the family dinner. Let me encourage everyone to try to do that. And there's all kinds of statistics about when families eat dinner together, and we make that a huge priority. And I just want to say, if that is a struggle with some of you parents who you can't quite do it, you can do it. Again, you may be eating at 10 o'clock at night. You may be eating at 5:30.
But it's worth it.
It is worth it. It's huge. It's huge.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Hope this has been helpful for you guys, and we'll see you next time.